Welcome to the 2025 Meet the FiReStarters panel. It's not a panel, it's a pitch session. So I am very excited to introduce you to our 2025 FiReStarter companies. These are companies that are using technology to change the world for the better in some way. There's a broad ecosystem of companies that have been FiReStarters in the past, and you'll see that the FiReStarters this year are no different. They are covering a wide range of topics, but they're all really incredible. So the way that this works is many of these companies are fundraising, not all of them, but many of them. And we will also be holding a reception this evening from, I don't want to misstate this, 5 to 7 p.m., right outside. There will be delicious heavy appetizers for dinner and a full bar. So we want you to have a great time talking to each other, talking to them, asking them any questions that you might have about their companies. And I would encourage you, if you're not yourself an investor, to think about who are the people that I know or the companies that I know that might be able to help these companies. FIRE is a community that succeeds when we support each other. We succeed because of the network that is here today, but also because of the network that's not here today. And so I just want to encourage everyone here to think of these companies. Our job as a community is to support these companies into the future. And for many of the reasons that we've talked about today and in general, the success of startups is not guaranteed, right? It's an extremely long and challenging road to be successful as a startup company, especially in some of these areas where the technology is new or innovative or harder to explain to people. And so I think it's important for this group to think of ourselves as we are joint shareholders in these companies, right? And so let us support their work today, but also in the future through connections and through your willingness to tell your friends about what they're doing and to help them make the world a better place. So, all right. Next up, we have, did I go too far forward? Okay, Carbon GeoCapture. John Pope, President and CEO. Here's your clicker. Welcome.
Afternoon. So when I was a kid, my uncle, who was a geophysicist at University of Utrecht, told me that climate change was going to be a big deal in my life. And I believed him. 20 years later, when I was a professor in Tokyo developing rechargeable battery cathodes with Matsushita, I had worked at Monsanto, I worked in a big group in Tokyo, and I realized that I wasn't having the impact I wanted to, so I quit and became an entrepreneur. Started a battery company, started a fuel cell company, reclaimed building material company. And while I was doing that, making no money from all those startups, I was doing a lot of consulting and side jobs and building furniture and stuff like that. My uncle called me up again and said, hey, I got a problem. I need to be able to find methane dissolved in seawater in the deep ocean because I'm studying gas hydrates and I can't find them. They come and go. And I got a guy coming over from Russian Academy of Sciences to show me a Raman spectrometer that he says will do it. And you're the only guy that I know that knows anything about Raman spectroscopy. You want to come down to Biloxi, drink vodka with Russians for a weekend, and I'll pay you some money? I said, of course. And so I did that. It was a lot of fun. Looked at the Raman spectrometer the guy was proposing, and it was not the kind that was going to work. And so I told my uncle, no, you don't do it this way, do it this way. He said, well, why don't you do it for us? And so it's like, well, I have enough projects going on, but he convinced me. And so we started that company called Well Dog. But we got tired, lived in Wyoming, got tired of driving to the ocean to field trial it. So we ended up dropping it into natural gas wells in Wyoming that were completed in coal seams. People were producing water off of coal seams and releasing the natural gas that's trapped in them. And these are deep coal seams that you're never going to mine. And they were producing a lot of water because they didn't know where the gas was. They just drill it and produce everything and see what happened. So we took the sensor down and started sweet spotting for methane in those coals in order to help them be more sustainable. That was successful. But I went back to doing batteries and fuel cells because that was sexy and cool and what I really liked. And then 9/11 happened. And all of our companies, we had to consolidate. We had to pick one. and I was the lead entrepreneur, and that company was closest to revenue. So I reluctantly gave up the cool stuff, and I went into doing technical services for oil and gas. And it worked. We got Shell came in, some VCs came in. We did a bunch of stuff in the States, took it to Australia, took it to China, grew it into 88 on the Inc. 500 list. It was very successful. And along the way, we started seeing some CO2 in the coal naturally occurring, which blew my mind. And so from that, I said, wow, this company actually could do something that I personally consider really important, which is playing a part in climate change. And so we watched how CO2 moved through coal. We understood how you might be able to do this. People started calling us and saying, hey, this sensor you developed, we could use it to watch how our CO2 sequestration projects in coal, how they went. So we'd go out and for ConocoPhillips and other companies and say, well, this is what happened, this is where it went. By the way, how did you do this? And they'd tell us, we'd say, why would you do it that way? That's not going to be a good way to do it. And sure enough, it wasn't working very well for them. And then they all quit because the DOE grants stopped. And we said, well, hold on a minute. This is actually a really good sink if you do it right. And we know it's coming where we're going to need it. And so we took the lessons that we had learned from Mother Nature, and we came up with this process where we would lift water from a coal seam, because all coal has water in it. We would drop it over into another well. Inside that well, we would bubble CO2 or flue gas containing CO2 in that well, and we would dissolve it in the water, flow it through the coal. The coal is a carbon filter for CO2, preferentially takes CO2 out of nitrogen and other gases. So the coal strips the CO2 out, you pull the water up, and you do it again, closed loop. And you do that until the coal is full, right? We said, wow, this is really cool. This is awesome. And then something else happened, which was that the IPCC's report came out in 2013, and we watched the whole process of how it was being written. And a friend of mine was actually on the part of the group that did it, and we just were blown away by two things. One was that the report said that we were screwed if you actually looked at the data. And number two is that if you read the narrative, you would think that wasn't true. And that disconnect made us say, wow, we are all collectively going to wait too long to address this. And so we need to get a solution ready, because by the time people are ready to do something, there's not going to be time to develop the solution. So we started going down the path, and we spun this out in 2016, sold the Reclaimed Wood Company to fund it. We got it stood up, and then COVID happened, right as we were starting to go out to the field. Thank God. Because instead of going to the field, we ran the economics of it. We understood all the cost centers. We ran the economics of the conventional approach of doing this. And what we found blew us away, which is that CCS is only really expensive because you have to pay to purify the flue gas. And when you're dealing with post-combustion sources of CO2, which are more than 80% of our stationary point sources, by the way, but when you're dealing with those, the CO2 concentration is low. It's 3.5% for a natural gas turbine to maybe as much as 20% or 25% for a steel plant. Most of it's 12.5%, 13% for coal-fired power plants, right? This is really expensive to clean up. That's where most of the money goes. If the coal does it for us, all of a sudden CCS is inexpensive, right? And these numbers are real. There's millions of dollars into developing those numbers. Right? If you look at a use case for natural gas-fired power or coal-fired power, you can see the impact of it. The green is when the coal helps us, the blue is when it doesn't, right? The dotted lines are the tax incentives that we've all put in place to support this activity. All right, so we then commercialized this, and while we were doing that, something else happened, which is that the conventional approach that you just saw has failed to abate CO2 emissions. CO2 emissions continue to go up. We are not willing as a society to pay the cost of the conventional approach, not yet. And so what we've been doing is going around and developing projects. We now have 30 projects, most in the US, for all kinds of different plants, for coal-fired power plants, cement, trona, pretty much everything you can imagine. We're a project developer. We have 30 million, 40 million tons per year of sequestration in our pipeline right now. There was only 2 or 3 million tons per year of CO2 put away in engineered solutions last year total across the whole world, to give you a context for that, right? And so what we do is develop these projects. We get paid while we do it, right? And that is supported by the fact that our project IRRs are typically 15 to 20% plus unlevered. That includes 45Q and voluntary credits, and 45Q is one of the very few credits that was just protected by the House Ways and Means Committee, and it's going to be even more protected by the Senate, in our view, from our discussions, right? And so what we're trying to do now is accelerate, right? And so being here, we're inviting you to participate with us in two ways, if you're of a means and of a mind. The first way is that we have chosen, because of the importance of this mission, we've chosen to follow a low capital path. We work with angels and small family offices to fund our topco while we chase profitability. So if you're interested in talking to us about that, we're currently oversubscribing a $3 million round. You can talk to me, or you can talk to Chris Verone, if you don't mind raising your hand, Chris, and about that. Alternately, we have projects that are going, but they're going at the pace of the industrial partners right now. And so with properly motivated financial partners who want to see these happen, we have some projects right now that could be first of a kind. Natural gas processing flue streams into coal, we could do that immediately. We have it set up. We're working with a regulated utility on a large project right now. They're having to find ways to fund it. And despite what we all wished for, per the panel earlier, their hands are tied. And so finding money to come in alongside them to get that project off the ground, again, first of a kind. So if you're interested in either one of those collaborations with us, please talk to me or Chris. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. If you go to these QR codes, you can learn more about us.
Thank you. That was great. I love hearing about John's explanation of the wandering path of the entrepreneur. What you discover along the way and how it changes your perspective about what you should be doing.